Hello, I'm Luciana, and I'm going to be talking about the development of psychology and psychiatry as a result of World War One. First of all, it's shell shock. Shell shock, basically, people had this because of war, and people had like unexplained tremors, blindness, deafness, and paralysis. And some of them even have like railway spine, in which they basically like they walk weird, they walk like zombies. Yeah, like during World War One, doctors saw soldiers with these kind of symptoms as mentally weak, that they were cowards, and that this all happened because they lacked like the military discipline. And so Charles Mayers, he was a British doctor, and he speculated that these behaviors happened because like the soldiers were in the front where shell exploded. So like the mini fragments of it went into their brains and it can like injure it. So that's why it's called shell shock. But all like this hypothesis kind of like went down when soldiers who had yet to see combat developed like similar symptoms to it. Like German soldiers who has never been under fire were more likely to present symptoms than those who have had. So they can like went into a discussion. And then Michael Roth said that shell shock resembled hysteria, but at the time hysteria was something that only happened to women. So like there was no way that happened. And all of this happened because they repressed memories of failure, like they reemerge as fantasies of the military accomplishments. So it can like this mix up with like the exploding shells. So at that time it had to be anything but physiological. Like they thought that it had to be something physical, and that if it was psychological, it was because they like the military discipline, as I already said. Then like nowadays it's called PTSD, but like at the time it they're different but kind of like similar, and it's also called like for neurosis. Then Arthur Horse, he was a guy like who healed around 90% of like the 80,000 soldiers who were in like who have shell shock. He was he was in the front lines, but then like, he stepped down and went to this hospital when he accepted people who had shell shock symptoms, and most of them were like healed with one session. But yeah, he was really famous because he stayed around them, and like other doctors who treated shell shock, they kind of like tortured them because one way to like heal shell shock was by electric shock. And Lewis Gilland was a really famous guy at the time because he uh, tortured the soldiers into like making them all right and okay. He basically like he could take a guy if you were like afraid of the dark. He'll take that guy who's afraid of the dark and like take him to a really secluded place with really dark ambience and no lights, and put him there until he's like freaking out and start talking. If someone like couldn't talk, uh, he'll electroshock their tongue until they will scream, and it's like, okay, yeah, he's healed. Also, many like countries have like their way of dealing with it and their own like ideas of what happened. The French were like the most brutal with the treatment, and also like many soldiers in the war, like in the battles, like if they see you with any of these like symptoms, they could kill you. Like even if you were their convoy, they wouldn't hesitate to kill you, and you would also be decapitated and stuff. The Italy actually thought that this will happen because when they returned home, like the symptoms appeared stronger. So they were like, "Oh, it's because they went back home. So like we should keep them in the war and not like let them go home." And like Britain they were like not just second about it being like a psychological reason about it. And this gave like shell shock, like gave the word a whole new idea of madness and mental illness. And while in World War One it was not accepted, in World War Two, like it actually gave like a whole new idea of what these are some pictures about it. And as I was saying, in World War Two, like this took a turn because due to World War One, Robert S. Woodsworth created the Psychoneurotic Inventory, which this is like the first personality test. So basically, they were like just like small questions. They normally ask like, "Have you ever been afraid of going insane, or can you sit still like without fidgeting?" And this was like kind of to sort those who were like uh, who had or not shell shock. So this was a way for like people not to go into battle if you had shell shock. So only those who appear mentally fit could actually engage in the conflict, and those who hadn't, or like those who appeared to be feeble-minded, were excluded from service. And this was actually really essential in keeping these types of records from the battlefield. And actually, the Psychoneurotic Inventory, uh, like it has been like developed, and like from World War One to 30 years later. While like nowadays it's not that used, but at that time it actually helped a lot. This is Woodsworth, and this is like kind of like the personality test. Now, military psychiatry. Military psychiatry really like developed because, as I already said, in World War One, like mental illness was not feeling right, and like you were just coward. But in World War Two, it actually doctors treated those who had shell shock in a more friendly way, and it was actually socially accepted at the time. So military psychiatry like was implemented as like, you know, like when you get amputated or something, you get treatment. It's the same when you get like hurt in your brain, in, you know, mental ill. They treat you like in the military psychiatry. And this like Sigmund Freud, him, he was really important because he's literally the father of psychiatry, and he made all like the fundamentals of psychiatry as we all know that back then. And like he said that like he worked in order to make the unconsciousness conscious. And he said that we have like the ego, and the superego. And he just made like all of the fundamentals that we want to know. And he actually had like two sons in the who went to war to the First World War One. So that kind of like impulsed him, like that pushed him into creating this. And he's literally the father of psychoanalysis too. So that's also my presentation. These are the references. And thank you so much for listening to me.